Hello, my name's Bev and I'm the author of the book Please Eat, A Mother's Struggle to Free Her Teenage Son from Anorexia, which describes our family's battle with the deadly eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, which my teenage son Ben developed back in 2009 when he was just 15 years old. These two blog posts are the final two blog posts for September 2011, and they're both about positive changes that had taken place. And the first one is from the 29th of September 2011, and it's called Beautiful, Healthy Hands. "Look at my hands," said Ben in the car as we were waiting for the school bus this morning. "Look how great they look." He spread his fingers out to show me smooth, healthy, blemish-free hands. "Except for where I nicked myself with a model knife," he added. And I'll tell you why this brought tears to my eyes. Over the past couple of years, Ben's hands have been in a terrible state, red, raw and bleeding, especially between the fingers and on the knuckles. The skin was always dry and flaky. Even 2 sets of prescription cream, including steroid lotion, made no difference. And of course you could see the bones and joints clearly under the pale, unhealthy tinted skin. Today his hands were perfect, except for the model knife scrape. Not only is he consistently eating just over the required number of calories for an adult man, a slight increase on last week, but those calories comprise the most healthy, nutrients-rich, balanced diet on the planet, and it shows, not just on his hands, but on his face too. And although he should ideally weigh a little more than he does now, it is wonderful to see flesh on his bones. His spine is still visible to a certain extent, but nothing like the gnarled, bumpy spine that used to protrude from his back, complete with angry red sores caused by too many sit-ups. Those sores are still visible, but only as brown scars which will hopefully fade with time. Looking at him today was a bit like looking at our cat and knowing that you're feeding her the right stuff because her coat is sleek and shiny and her eyes are bright. I told him it was probably because before his body was desperate to get hold of any nutrients that were put into it, so things like skin plus loads of other body parts suffered. I reminded him of when our psychiatrist warned him that his body was, in effect, eating itself. Now, as a result of a good 10 months' worth of healthy, balanced, nutrients-rich food intake, it is visibly transformed. Hopefully, any damage which might have been done or might not have been done to any other organs in his body will also be reversed. I'm no doctor, I don't know, and I can't see into his body, but hopefully everything is okay. And the next post is from the 30th of September 2011, and it's called "These Days a Six-Pack Isn't So Important." 2 years ago, when he was spiralling into the eating disorder at a rate of knots, Ben was obsessed with comparing himself with other boys at school, so much so that Ben used to get incredibly upset and distressed about how one boy in particular was stealing the limelight, whereas Ben was disappearing into the background. If it wasn't so obviously distressing for Ben, his descriptions of this boy's apparent behaviour would have been funny. This boy was hugely competitive, brilliant at every kind of sport and always top of the class in every academic subject. He was tall, handsome, muscular and athletic, constantly surrounded by an entourage of admiring girls to whom he would, according to Ben, routinely show off his muscular six-pack to gasps of admiration and amazement. Meanwhile, according to Ben, this boy would be constantly receiving text messages from other admiring girls while sending texts to yet more besotted women. The other boys in the year thought he was wonderful and wanted to be his friend. The staff thought he was wonderful. Everyone thought he was wonderful. But Ben couldn't handle it. I know that experts believe that the quest for the perfect body image doesn't cause eating disorders as such, but with Ben, the situation was definitely one of the triggers. Don't get me wrong, in no way am I blaming this boy. He was a really nice boy, and it was simply a case of Ben wanting the girls to love him, as he put it, in the same way. Because the girls seemed overawed by this boy's physique, Ben wanted to look the same. He was also convinced that this Adonis-like body was what gave the boy his confidence. If Ben had a six-pack like this boy, then he'd be popular and confident too. This was reinforced by the Adonis-like images Ben saw in men's glossy health magazines. To be popular and successful socially, you needed to look the part. Or at least that's what Ben thought. Ben had spent the entire summer of 2009 trying to build up his physique by swimming, running, weights, and the gym. The trouble was that unlike this boy who loved sport, Ben came to hate sport, only seeing it as a means to an end. Ben says that he suddenly realised he could reach his goal faster by eating less, because this would mean he wouldn't need to exercise as much. For a time it worked. Then he figured out that if he ate even less, he'd be even less shackled to the endless exercise routines. The trouble was that with the reduction in food came rapid weight loss, and with the weight loss came muscle loss. This meant that the six-pack he craved never materialised, as his body quickly became skinny rather than athletic. This in turn made him exercise even more instead of less. The result? A vicious downward spiral. And with this vicious downward spiral came all the eating disorder behaviours, rages and moods, not to mention the way an eating disorder loves to isolate its victim. So instead of becoming more popular, Ben was fading into the background on every count. Here I must emphasise again that in no way am I pointing fingers and blaming this poor boy for causing Ben's eating disorder. If it hadn't been him, the trigger would have been something or someone else, but that's not what this post is about. These days, this boy is still around, of course. He still has his awesome athletic physique, and he's still good at everything, including getting the girls. But the big difference is that Ben doesn't seem to give a damn. I know that because of the way he mentions him in passing yesterday. Ben's priorities and outlook have changed dramatically in the past couple of years. Ben still likes the idea of having a six-pack, but he's also found, especially now he's 2 years older and more mature, that six-packs don't get you the girls or make you more popular. Valuable, lasting relationships and friendships go a little deeper than that. And that's the end of that post and the end of the posts for September 2011. And this post gives some indication of something that is fairly typical with many, many boys who begin to develop an eating disorder. This desperate need to get fit and grow muscle in six-packs, etc., rather than get thin. So they're not trying to get thin initially, they're trying to get more muscular, they're trying to build muscle and definition, and they're seeing all these men in these men's fitness magazines. These are fully grown men, not teenage boys like them, but fully grown men who are very muscular, very defined, and who must spend 24 hours a day in the gym looking at them. And this is what they want to be like. And sadly, it doesn't always happen. And it, as I've just described in Ben's case, it led to him getting thinner and less defined in a muscular way, and descending rapidly into an eating disorder. And this can be so typical of boys with eating disorders. Obviously, some girls too want to be muscular and defined and can develop an eating disorder in the same way. But it's interesting to point out that the warning signs for boys can be slightly different than from girls who might want to go on a diet initially to get slim. That wasn't what Ben wanted. He wanted to become muscular and defined and sporty because he saw that as the key to making him popular, which is kind of crazy because, okay, Ben wasn't popular at primary school because he was very quiet and very shy, and he had a bit of puppy fat on him, and he just kept to the sidelines. He wasn't one of the boisterous boys that used to go out and kick a ball around the yard. But at secondary school he became very popular with his new group of friends, and it was kind of this strange conflict really of as the boys were going through puberty, they stopped being the little boys who were having fun, the boys of the first and second and maybe third form at secondary school, and started to become boys who wanted to be attractive to girls. And Ben kind of got it into his head that getting a six-pack was going to be the key to having the confidence to talk to and attract girls, which is a kind of weird again because it's such a shame because Ben was a gorgeous looking boy and girls used to turn around and admire him wherever he went, and I used to feel as proud as Punch. And yet it's really tragic that, like so many young people, Ben didn't believe that he was attractive. Anyway, I could go on about this at some length, but I won't. And thank you for listening to this so far. You'll find a link below to my blog, and you'll also find a link to my website where you can download free PDFs of my blog, and also a link to Amazon where you can buy a copy of my book.